Hi everybody, it's Lou Sims here from Lou Sims Paper Crafter, and I'm here today just to share a quick tutorial on using the smaller elements within the Nuts to You stamp set, or should I say the Nuts About You. So in the actual stamp set you get all of these stamps, so there's 11 stamps in total, the main focus one being the actual fox, and then you get some smaller element stamps as well. We're going to be looking at creating a card using the smaller elements and not using the fox. So the idea being that you can then extend this set and come up with lots of different ways of using it. So let's just put that to one side. Now the card we're going to make is this one here. And I focused on the squirrel and gone for the sentiment, nuts about you. So we've obviously got the nuts and I've got a few toadstools in there. Now I've layered mine up, as you can see, and made it 3D. Now you could easily, if you did masks, create this scene so it was actually flat. So you don't need to make this a dimensional card if you didn't want to. Right, so let's make a start. Right, I've stamped some of the images already to go ahead, and we now need to create some of the other bits of the elements to do with the card. So I'm just going to stamp the squirrel, and I'm using a black hybrid ink, so because I'm going to watercolour. So I just put the squirrel on there. Now I love making these sort of cards because they're a great way of using up the scraps of smaller card that you keep, maybe too small to throw away, but actually worthwhile keeping just that little bit longer. Right, so to put that to one side, I'm going to use the branch next. And this branch could go either way round, so you could have it whichever way you wanted the little bit to stand up. It really doesn't make any difference at all. So I'm just going to put that there. And then I'm just going to start adding one or two of the little toadstools on here and decide where I'd like them to go. I'll put one there and one there. And then I think I'll do another one there. So as you can see, to create the card so far, I've only used very small scraps of actual card. And that's why I love the smaller elements within the Polkadoodle sets. So let's put all the stamps to one side and begin colouring up the images. All right. Okay, I'll move my card out of the way, but keep it there to refer to. Now I'm using an A6 card blank, which I've made myself, and I've done it so it's actually landscape, so it hinges there, and because I thought for landscape would be better because of using the actual branch and creating the whole of the background, so it stood out a little bit more rather than putting it that way. It would work that way and go up that way, and you could have your elements trailing down, but I just thought it'd make a change to go landscape. So let's move that out of the way. Now I'm going to be using my Van Gogh watercolour pens, and I'm just going to start, because on my card, as you can see here, I've just made a basic background and I've just done the blue and the green. So I'm just going to start that first so we can actually put the card blank to one side to dry. So let's just pick up a little bit of the blue, a bit more water. And that, don't overthink this, just go for it. If you wet your card beforehand, it would behave in a totally different way. So I'm going to add a little bit more water in places, as you can see. Now if you want to create the illusion of clouds, you can take a towel and you can just add them into the background there and just take back some of the colour. And then we'll just add a little bit of the green. And as I said, you don't have to be too fussy about it. It's just a generalised background. You can add a little bit of darker bits if you really wanted to. But it's not overthinking it. So that is all I'm going to do for the background. Now I need to make sure the background's dry. Otherwise it's going to be really tricky when I come to stamp my sentiment. So we'll just put that to one side. And going back to these elements here. And we'll get them coloured up. Now I'm not going to do over fussy colouring. I like watercolour. Oh, I'm banging the side of my table there now. Because of that, you know, you don't have to do over fussy. So right, I've coloured up the acorns, and as you can see, I'm not overly doing the colouring. I'm not worried if it's blended out because I'm going to cut the images out. You could, if it really does worry you, is take a paintbrush and a clean cloth. So I'll get a smaller paintbrush and a little bit of water, and you can go right up. And then if you get a cloth, you can blot it away, and you gradually create a faux bleached effect. That's totally up to you. As I said, it depends on whether it bothers you. Now, in the card I created here, I did a red squirrel. So I thought this time it'd be nice to do a grey squirrel. So I'm just going to put some of my black here because it's quite an intense colour and I don't want it to be too black. So let's colour in the squirrel, because we can always add colour. We just can't take it away. It's not quite so easy. So I'm just going to build up the colour lightly. And do his ears. And not forgetting his feet. Okay, so I'm going to let him dry a little bit, and then I will add some more definition to him. So we'll just crack on with the toadstools. Right, I'm going to leave the squirrel and the acorns like that and put them now to one side to dry. And we'll get on with the tree. Right, that's all my images coloured. I'm not worried that the red's gone out on the side there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to let them dry and put them to one side. My background has now dried, but I'm not going to stamp my sentiment just yet until I've done all the other different features for placement. Otherwise, I could find that I end up having the sentiment covered by one of my embellishments, or the placement looks wrong. I could stamp it up too high, so then everything else looks like they're in the sky rather than actually being grounded. So I'm going to tidy up my bits. I'm going to also cut out these elements here, and once I've done that, I'll be back to share with you how we actually make the card from there. Okay, that's all my elements dry and cut out and all ready to go. Now, if you want to add a little bit more definition into your work using watercolour pencils or any other form of pencils, you can go over, even your markers. So I could go and add a little bit more detail if I wanted to in different places on the squirrel. Now this isn't obviously an added extra, you don't have to do this part, but just in case you do want to add a little bit more shading here and there. So I could add, oh, let's get the a little bit darker bits to his tail, and just a little bit on his feet. Using my watercolour pencils, the reason I've done it is it gives me the option that if I now want to go back in and blend out, I can. So just add a little bit of shadow, and we'll add a little bit of pink, a bit more pink to his cheeks, not too much. So from there I've just added a few more little bits and pieces. As I said, it's up to you whether that's what you want to do. So you could add, if you wanted to, start adding your shadows where you think they would be. Not everybody enjoys using a paintbrush and watercolouring. I appreciate that. Alternatively, there's loads of different types of watercolour pens out there, and they're a good alternative as well to use. So I'm not going to do much more. Might add just a little bit to the tree trunk. And maybe a little bit just to the bottom of the toadstools. Must admit, every time I stamp a toadstool, I keep saying to myself, oh, I must try them in different colours. And then I always seem to go back to doing them in the actual red. Now I'm missing a toadstool. I'll find him in a minute, that's fine. We can always stamp up another. And let's do a little bit down here. So as you can see, all I'm doing is I've just taken the pencils and I've just added a little bit more highlights or a little bit more shadow where I want. So if you don't feel comfortable doing it with the pens, grab your pencils or your markers. So let's put that out of the way. And back down to the card. Right, so there's our background. We've got it all done. So we've got a mock sky and a mock land. And what we need to do is work out where we're going to stamp the sentiment. So I'm going to obviously have my branch and my squirrel. And he's going to sit there. And let's have a 1 and 2 like that, one more there, and then I've got a couple of the toadstools. So now by doing a dry run, I've got an idea of where I'm going to put my sentiment, and I'd like it to be underneath the branch. Now you could use a stamping platform if you don't have one. What I do is I'll use the grid on my actual mat, so I can get my sentiment and line it up against one of the lines, as you can see, and then I can just get my stamp block, put it, and I now know that's as straight as I would like it to be. So I'm just going to move the bits I don't need out of the way, and then I have an idea of where I'm going to stamp my sentiment. Now for me, if this is where, if it's going to go wrong, this will where it'll go wrong. So we're going to do just about there, I think. And I just moved. Oh, that's not too bad. Right, so we can now start actually putting the bits together. So I'm going to start with my tree, and I am going to layer this one up. Can you see, look, my scrap bits of paper, as I said before, and it's got previous stamping that I didn't like or didn't use, I'll just turn the card over. I like to use a heavyweight watercolour card, and sometimes that can be a little bit expensive, so that's one of the reasons I keep it. So let's add that, taking the backs off. Now I am going to add some glue on the pads just to give me a little bit of wiggle time, and then I can put my branch down. Also, putting the glue on here now, I want to actually slide or hide a couple of the acorns behind, and because I've got a bit of glue on the pad, it means it gives me as well just a little bit of breathing space that I can get them in place before I stick it down. So that's that side. Let's get another one. And we're going to have that one up there. Okay, you might find that you need to hold down the images just a little bit longer because you're going watercolour card onto watercolour card. And then I'm going to add another acorn. Whoops. I'm going to raise it up with a few foam pads. I'm just going to put that one in front there. I'm quite happy with that. And then let's get my squirrel. I mean, I'm adding a little bit of shape, but I'm not going too much to town it. I mean, you could put it on your hand and go round the edges if you wanted to create a lot more definition. I'm not particularly worried. You could use gel if you wanted to raise him up even higher, but as they're all going to be the same sort of height, the only thing I will do is probably put one more pad just behind where his head would be, so that his head stands out a little bit more than the rest of it. Now I have got pads behind the toadstools here. Once I've got everything in place, I will take them off and I will actually put them down. But I don't stick everything down, as you saw, because then it gives me a little bit of chance to move things around to where I wanted to. And then finally, I've got my little mushrooms. I'm just going to cut those extra bits off. Now, you could shape these and put foam pads on and make them stand out even more. The choice is yours. Okay, I could do one over there. No, I'll do 3. Now, my other card, I had another toadstool, but as I said, I seem to have lost one, but that doesn't matter. Just stick that there, hold it for a moment. There we go. And decide what I'm going to do with this one. Might change it. Oh, I'm now faffing a bit. I'm going to bring it a bit down, and let's put a pad on this one. Oh, Polkadoodles going for a walk. Okay. Now I'm just going to let that settle in place, and then I can decide if I want to move them around. Let's move those out of the way. So that's the basic composition of the card. And as you can see, it's using all the smaller elements, and we've created quite a good scene. Right, so what I am going to do is I'm happy with everything else. I'm just going to take off the foam backing on here. There we go. And then the last one here. I haven't put any glue on them. There we are. So everything's now in place. Now, one of the last things I did, and this is again an added extra, you could add 1 or 2 sequins to it. I put a couple of bits of heart confetti around to add to it. Again, it's up to you. If you're happy with it the way it is, leave it as it is. If you want to add a little bit more, add a little bit more. I'm dreadful for not knowing when to stop, so I am going to add a little bit more. Let's have a think. Oh, let's give a heart there and one on that acorn there. Now I know using the little bits of confetti wouldn't be to everybody's taste, because obviously they can be quite fiddly. You can get some really good picking up tools as well. I just put a little bit of glue on the end of my pokey tool and let it do it that way. Send that one around. And there we go. So we've now got a few extra hearts on there, and it's all then matches in like nuts about you. So that is actually all I'm going to do for the card. So if I bring in my previous one, which I've seemed to have splattered as making this one, I've just changed it. There is an added toadstool, but in here he's a red squirrel, in here he's a grey squirrel. So there's again different options, so you could still make the same design but just change your characters up into different colours. Could be a blue squirrel. I hope that was you enjoyed watching that. It was great to have your company. It'd be great to see what else you've done with the other animal stamps that Polkadoodles have produced. So let us know. Come and join us on the Facebook page, or leave a comment underneath here and we can find you on your blog or on your other social media platforms. Many thanks. Hope to see you soon. Bye bye.